Alright, so today we're going to decorate this beautiful sunflower cookie. It's fall. We gotta have sunflowers because it brightens up the day, right? So we're going to use yellow and brown out of our cookie kits. And you want to just cut a very, very small hole. Remember, if you cut it too big, you can't go back, but if you cut it small, you can always cut off a little bit more. So cut small first. Okay, and I am going to outline and flood the center first, because it's going to be easier to put the petals up against the center than just do the center afterwards, at least in my opinion. You can go the other way, but I have always found it to be a little more successful when I start in the center. Now, sometimes icing will collapse because the cookie underneath it is so dry. What I recommend, in order to make sure you don't have the collapse, or basically what happens is it'll crater, it'll create like a little air pocket and a hole in it so it won't look as smooth. What I recommend is put on a fan, and that'll help make this crust over a lot faster and dry so that you don't have the cratering effect. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to put this aside and work on another cookie while this center part dries. This has been sitting in front of the fan for about 5 to 10 minutes, so you can kind of see how it's not as wet looking, but it's still shiny. So be careful as you move it too, because you could create a little bit of a crust line. Now, you could do two things to the sunflower. You could either leave the center as is, and what I'll do, I have a second cookie that I could show you. You can leave the center as is, or you can take your toothpick, or if you have like the end of a spoon, or in this case I have a little paintbrush here, you can go ahead and make a bunch of indents into the icing, and it'll make it look like the center of a sunflower. You want to wait until it's well crusted over, anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes, and then you should be able to create the center of a sunflower for the look. So now we're just going to outline the sunflower. Again, the beautiful thing about nature is it does not have to be perfect. For me, I have a tendency to not follow the lines very well. And I don't like how this is still showing a little bit of my lines. I love sunflowers, you guys. They're just so happy. Now, if you want, I'm not doing this myself right now, but if you wanted to, you could, if you have your cookie on a plate, you could just turn the plate around each time you need to do a new petal, which will help you keep your direction moving the right way. I am clearly not doing that. I'm just trying to do it in one spot so that I don't make you all seasick. Okay. So, like the other cookies in this set, if you want a nice puff, and especially where these are, they're pretty small sections to flood, what you want to do first is put down some icing so that they don't crater. And again, what that means is ultimately, as the icing dries, it may fall in on itself and create this weird divot hole. I'm hoping it's kind of weird. I do have another sunflower off to the side, and I'm hoping it'll do it for you so you can kind of see what I mean. But I guess we'll find out whether or not it'll do it. Okay, so again, give this about, 5-ish minutes or so just to crust over a little bit so that when you go to flood it, it'll have that nice puff. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so it's been a couple of minutes. Let's go ahead and start flooding some of these sections. So again, we're gonna have to come back to this at least twice before the sunflower is done. And for this particular sunflower, we're gonna again throw it underneath the fan, which actually helps its drying time as well. But we wanna make sure we don't get any of those craters or nasty things like that. It's just a nice little, it's very therapeutic, isn't it? You could also, if you wanted to smooth out the icing, there's 2 ways to do it. I'm doing what I consider the cheating way, which is to just use the tip of my bag, the nose of it, and smooth the icing with the tip of the bag. So I'm just pushing it around until it looks nice and smooth. See, just like that. So like the other flower that we're doing, it is very likely that you'll have to come back and do this in multiple sections. I'm gonna do my best not to let this flood into it, the next one. And it just might. But I guess you'll see what that looks like too. See how it's starting to seep together? That's okay. What I'll do is when I go to do the next section, this section right here, I'll just pull it down to make it look like it was supposed to be that way. All right, last petal for this round. All right. So now we're just gonna set this one aside under a fan again. Just dries up the drying time, and or speeds up rather the drying time. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, let's do the next round. All the icing on this is pretty much ready to go. As you can see, it's not just flooding into the next petal. It's crusted over and holding its shape. So when you start to see that it doesn't look wet anymore, it's still shiny, but it doesn't look wet, that's when you know it's ready for the next layer. Just filling them all in, nice and slow. See this little tiny section right here? We're gonna have to come back for that one. Okay. And again, see how this one sort of flooded in? It's because I was rushing it. So we're just gonna do a nice little line here. Make it look like it's supposed to look like that. There's no mistake that can't be fixed, right? There you go. All right, under the fan one more time. And actually, before we do that, I think I am going to go ahead and make this look textured. So very lightly, now that it's fully crusted over, very lightly, you just sort of put a little indent in there all the way around. And this is natural for this to look this way. But you gotta remember, the top is all nice and crusted, but underneath is still very wet. So I won't do it to the other one. I'm still hoping it'll just fall. It's right off to the side over here, if you can't see. But this one, let's do it. Let's make it look textured. I think it'll look beautiful. All right, last little section, and then you can let this little guy dry for, well, so if you want to stack these, you're gonna want to let it dry for at least 5 to 6 hours. Or you could just eat it, because, you know, it tastes pretty good. So there you go, there's your sunflower. So again, I recommend just putting it under fan for a little bit. But yeah, so if you want to stack these or package them, give them to someone, then you're gonna wanna let it dry for at least 6 hours. I recommend anywhere between 10 and 12. Some people will tell you 24 hours. I personally really like my cookies soft, so I won't do 10 to 12 hours. But that's, or I won't do 24 hours, but that's really up to you. If nothing else, it's still a really good tasting cookie. You do want to dry it enough so that when you do package them, if you bring them anywhere or whatever, they're not going to just get stuck to the packaging. So that's why we recommend, at least 6 hours at a minimum, but even that is pretty low for packaging. Now this is the other sunflower. I accidentally touched that. Whoops. That I did not put any kind of squiggles down underneath. So you can kind of see a couple little divots happening, and they're like the beginning of the crater, so you could kind of see how that's indented in the center. That's the beginning of a crater. Overall, I'm actually surprised it didn't actually crater, but that's why you put the squiggle lines down. There you go, sunflowers.